Hi, thanks for coming on. Andy speaking. Friday, 14th of October. Just coming up 6:30. Right. Before we get into it, just to say, I'm going to cover the Premiership this week. I'm not putting the prices out or anything like that, but I will cover the ratings, and we'll come to that straight away because that's the first thing. And it's something I've been asked for plenty of times in the past. And I thought this week, with it being a quiet week in the National Leagues and I had some time on my hands, I thought I would rate all the games. Well, I rate the games anyway, but I thought I'd actually put the ratings up here because people ask about the Premiership all the time. I don't know why. Maybe it's just familiarity, but it's not for me. But I'm just going to show you the figures. Right, here we go. So these are the figures for the games at the weekend. I've not actually converted them into my price because I thought I would talk you through that, because again, it's something I get asked about all the time, and rather than replying individually to people, it's easier for me to do this and then everybody can see it. So if we look at this first game, Brentford at home to Brighton, that's tonight. Brentford 32-24 draw, 44 Brighton. Now let's look at that in a different way. So this is a game. There's the figures. Now you work to 100% book. Okay, bookmakers will work to, I don't know, 105, 103, 108, 110, 112, whatever. And you say if a bookmaker works to 105% book, that 5% is his margin. But you can't get the true odds or the true price of a team, a horse, a person, whatever, unless you price it up to 100% book. And that is why these figures here will always add up to 100%. Now to get the price, because we're working to 100% book, if bookmaker, as I say, is working to 105, this will be 105 there, but we're working to 100, so we go 100 divided by 32, which is 3.125. We minus 1, and that gives us 2.12. So the true odds of Brentford for tonight's game is 21-10. So I'd then write that in there. Brighton, 100 divided by 44, 2.27, minus 1 is 1.27, round about 5-4. So we're going to put Brighton in at 5-4. Again, the draw is rated 24, 100 divided by 24, 4.16, minus the 1 is 3.16. The true odds are 16-5. So then what we've then got to do, once we've priced it up, we've then got to go and look at the market, see what prices there are available, and see how they are in relation to our prices, and that's something which is the key ingredient of it. Now there is a smidge of value in Brentford, okay, but obviously you always want to, how can I say it, you don't always want to back the team which is the highest rated. Now that's 2.4, they're 2.1, so there is that amount in Brentford, okay, so you get 30% extra for your money in Brentford. Now it's a question really then of, do you go with Brentford at that price and get the more value, but then they're not the team that's most likely to win. Brighton are the team most likely to win. And so what we've got here, we've got a situation where Brighton are favourites on our book to win, but there's a 56% chance Brighton won't win this game. You can have a team rated, believe it or not, as low as 35% that's top rated. And just because it's top rated doesn't mean they're going to win. And this is something which I say to people every week when someone says to me, who do I think will win? I don't ever think of a football match in terms of who I think will win. It is all decided by this. That's the only thing I'm interested in. And what I do is I work on a sliding scale. So you've often heard me say, if I've got a team that's rated 24% and there's, say, this figure here is 0.85, I'm not interested. It might be 1.2, then I am interested, because on my sliding scale, teams that are rated in the low to mid 20s, because the strike rate I know is only going to be what this figure here is, then I want to make sure I'm getting well paid for it. I mean, this game for me has got no interest at all, and that is why I generally don't get involved in the Premier League, because I'm not going to take 0.3 extra at 32%, and I'm certainly not going to take 0.05 at 44% for an away side. That on my book is bad value. Even though both of these teams are overpriced slightly, dependent upon where you go. And that's something else you've got to shop around for the prices, because I don't know, Brighton might be 11 to 10 somewhere, so you're not going to touch it. But this game is too short for a bet, but this is just to show how it's done. And this figure here is worked out by adding and taking away. I'll just use this one quickly. When I start, that is how they all are. Everything looks like that. And then, the manager. So who's the best manager? We're unsure of this manager, so we can't really say. So, we might leave that figure alone for the manager. We might add a point, say 2 points to him, then we drop that down to 31. And then we'll look at the teams. We'll look at, is it a team full of individuals? Is it just an actual team? Is it a team where there's 10 individuals, 10 team players and one individual player, and stuff like that, and we'll try to predict the starting lineup. I don't really look at head-to-head history. I look at it, but it doesn't really have a massive bearing. We look at recent form, whether they're better at home, whether they're better away, how they've got on against teams in and around them, how they perform. Say like this game, I don't know where Brentford are in the league off the top of my head. I did this morning when I put this up. I think Brentford they're about 11th or 12th, so they're a mid-table side. They're playing Brighton, who are 7th. So, from the form perspective, we're looking to see how Brentford get on at home against sort of like teams in the top third of the table, say. And we'll be looking to see how Brighton get on the road away to mid-table teams. What is their average? What's their expected goals to be scored? Do we think? I don't use XG just to say. I sort of, make my own mind up like that, and it's like I know when I look today, Brentford, they're not the strongest team defensively, but they've won 2 from 4 at home. So, at the moment they've won 50% of their games, but are those wins been against teams in the top, the bottom, the middle of the league, etc., etc. And then once you've done all that, you end up with figures like this. And then you then convert that into prices by doing these sums, and then you go and look around the markets. And don't just go on Oddschecker. Please don't just go on Oddschecker. Go and look at Chisholm's, Manny Bernstein, McBookie, etc. There's plenty out there that aren't on Oddschecker, honestly, guys. And sometimes that's where you find better value. Oddschecker is bookmaker run, and that it's not the right place to go. It really, really isn't. You have to look on there, of course you do, but there are other options. Don't just get stuck in this, I must go straight to Oddschecker. Spend time, because, like this. I mean, it's 13 to 10. I don't know. You might have found 13 to 8. Then all of a sudden, that becomes a bit higher, and then you think, well, it's 0.13, 44%. Okay. Look at your sliding scale. Make your own sliding scale. I wouldn't ever tell anybody what my sliding scale is, because that's showing everybody, how it works then. But that is the most important thing. Give your teams. You always start off with this. I lop off, because I don't go 0.33. I drop them down to 33, and then, as I say, you're going to add or take away from this figure, depending upon all those variants. There's loads of them, and there's some of them I've just spoken to you about. And try to predict the team. Give each player a rating in that team at the start of the season. See what that team's best 11 is. It's like, I'll just tell you just quickly, it's like Manchester United. One of the reasons why I've been happy to oppose them over the last few seasons, because I've felt they've been a team of individualists rather than an actual team. I think, I'm not a Chelsea supporter, but if you can remember the team that Chelsea won the title with under Conte, I felt they had 10 really good, hard working, gelled out, 10 players like that, and they had one superstar in Eden Hazard. And I think that's my perfect team. I think that when you get 10 team players and one individualist, I think that is the best. That that generally does build the best sides, and the teams with the best attacks generally are towards the top of the tables. But the main key ingredient for me is the manager. Now, if Graham Potter was still in charge of Brighton, I can tell you now that this would be 50%. So if that was 50%, that would be even money. And it was 13-10, we'd be getting 0.3. Is 0.3 a 50% value on my sliding scale? Yes, it is. I'd be back in Brighton. But obviously, because of the management change, I've had to adapt that. And, that's now down to 44. So you can see just straight away that Graham Potter is worth 6 points as a Brighton manager. And I think he's doing a fantastic job already with Chelsea. I'm not a Chelsea fan. I'm not a Brighton fan. I'm a Hartlepool United and Havant fan. So, it makes no odds to me. But yeah, that's how you do it. Always do it to 100% book, and that's how you get your prices. 100 divided by the figure you've given them, -1, then you've got your true odds, and that is what your team's true odds are. And then when you can find a bigger price than what they should be, and what I mean by a proper bigger price is that's not enough with that figure. Like when I say to you, for teams in the 20s, I need at least a point in it. You can work out roughly what a team needs to be when it's in the 30s and in the 40s and 50s and so on. And that is how you do it. So that's just a quick guide, because I get asked all the time when people say to me, who do I think will win? I don't have opinions like that, and I never have had. Who do I think will win tonight? Figures tell me Brighton will win. But there's more value in Brentford, because if you remember, I think this is 0.05, isn't it? Because they should be 5-4. I was just messing around there. So if I was going to bet this game, if I was bored one night watching telly, nothing else to do, I'd have a small bit on Brentford because there's a most in the price. But there is a 68% chance it won't win, and that is something else you've got to factor in. If you're going to bet Brighton, there's a 56% chance it won't win. Factor everything into that. Right, there's the Premier League stuff. I as I say, I haven't priced it up because I don't know any prices from the Premiership off the top of my head. That was the only one I'd done because it was first on the list. But you can see these figures. Leicester 42%, Palace 34%. I don't know. Look at the 50% and above. Are they value? Make a little list. Fulham 50%. That's even money. 100 divided by 50 is 2 minus 1 equals 1. We know that's 50. That's evens. Wolves should be odds on. 66%. Tottenham I've got in at 2s on, because I know that off the top of my head. 57% Chelsea. 58% Arsenal. Manchester United evens. West Ham, no, Man City. So, look, it's no coincidence, is it? Man City 56, United 50, Arsenal 58, Chelsea 57, Tottenham 66, Wolves 55, Fulham 50. You've got there 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the top 6, all above 50. Safest bet of the weekend looks to be Spurs at 66%. But let me just tell you that 66% is not just reflective of Tottenham, okay? That 66% is reflective of Everton as well, okay? And that's something that when I do this and speak about this in all football leagues, and they're rated 55%, that 55% hasn't exclusively come about because of them. It is like this Forest's figures 11 less than it started with, and the draw's 10 less than what it started with. So those points that has come from there have been put over to there, and it isn't just because Wolves are a great side or whatever, something like that. They're third bottom, I think, Wolves, but I'm just saying it is because of Nottingham Forest's shortcomings as well that has projected that figure up. Same there as well, because when I went through this game, I know that I was constantly putting points across, and like another little tip: make a starting 11 combined from the two sides, and that's another good guide. And as I say, I always find that teams that have got more individualists in don't win things. Look at Paris Saint-Germain, the front three they've got, 3 of the best players in the world. They won't win the Champions League. They won't, because they're not a team. It's a group of individualists, and it's not a team. A team with a star player is the best way. But that's it. I just wanted to give you these figures on the Premiership. Go away, get yourself a calculator, 100 divided by this, 100, and go and price it up and see how you get on, and see whether there's any value in any of these games. I don't think there is. I know there is some value in it, like there's value in those, but it's not value that I want to bet. If I had to have a gun to my head, it would obviously be this because it's the highest figure, but it's not to say it's going to win, but I do think it probably will. I do think they'll win, actually. But it's not that the price isn't enough. I think they'll splat Liverpool at the weekend. I really do. But that's it, guys. Right, let's go on with some proper stuff now. Right, Scottish Premiership, just quick. Celtic Hibs, it's not a game to discuss. Four's on, no interest, and at a point at 8%, not in a million years. Celtic will win, I would have thought anyway, but there's no value in it. Livingston St Johnstone, 50, 24, 26. Chalked them down last week after the disappointment at home to Ross. But I don't think they've done a lot wrong. I had somebody at the game. They should have been 2 or 3 up at half-time. And the text message he sent to me is, if they don't take their chances, they're going to be mugged. And they were. And it was simple as that. It's a no-bet game, 0.05 at 50, only on a bad week. And I wouldn't touch this. Ross, Dundee United, the bottom 2. Dundee United beat Aberdeen last week, didn't they? Which was a bit of a shock. 0.2 at 43%. Again, it doesn't really do anything for me. That's... I mean, if you look at this, there's 0.38 at 58 here, and you're getting 0.2 at 43, 0.05 at 50. So straight away, you've got an idea there that, oh, crikey, that's a good value bet, isn't it? That looks... Do you know what I mean? That's... The figure's high, and there's enough in it at that. So St Mirren, they're going well, aren't they? St Mirren, they've, particularly at home, they beat Celtic. Killy haven't won away from home. 0.38, 58%. It's up to you. Motherwell Rangers, 11-23, 66. Nothing at all in this game. Rangers are near enough, about the right price. And Motherwell, nothing in there, 11%. It's I don't get involved in stuff like this, just to say, because 89% of the time your bets are going to lose, and if you've got an 89%, you've got an 11% winning strike rate, your losing runs are going to be absolutely horrendous. The only time you can do things like this is like if there's plenty in there, like sometimes we get sort of 8-9 points in these bets, don't we? It's okay to chuck a point at it, providing you're winning regular elsewhere. That's the only thing I'll say. Aberdeen Hearts, 50, 23, 27. I think Hearts had a tough game, didn't they, last night? Got done 5-1 by Fiorentina. Aberdeen have been decent at home, 0.3 at 50%. It's okay, but when you compare it to the St Mirren bet, that's a standout, isn't it? 0.38 at 58%. I wish we could get bets like that all the time. But I'm not saying that isn't a bad bet, because that is second best bet in the division, isn't it? Right, let's go on to the Championship. Queen's Park Arbroath, 44, 23, 33, 0.15 at 44%. I think it's very skinny. I think it's a really bad coupon, I have to say. Arbroath, they've won once away from home, haven't they, at Morton? But they've lost 3 and drawn the other 1. I think they might go this season, Arbroath, sadly. Queen's Park at home, they've won 3, lost 2. The 2 losses have been to Ayr and Morton, and obviously Arbroath have won away at Morton, and that just shows you what a fly in the ointment that Morton are. You just never know what you're going to get with them. And the members' bets I put out in midweek, I was absolutely gutted we didn't do Kelty, because I did think that Kelty would probably beat Queen of the South, as I said in the email, but because it was Queen of the South, it was a risky bet. Cove Inverness, 35, 23, 42. Cove, not bad at home. They've won 3 from 5. They've beaten Arbroath, Dundee and Wraith, I think, which is pretty fair. But it's Inverness this weekend who, to be fair to them, are on a right roll. They've won the last 4, haven't they? And 3 of those have been on the road. And those away performances, wins at Wraith, Dundee and Ayr, I think are good. They beat Partick at home last weekend, which I was quite surprised about. And there's no doubt about it, they're going well. And I think they'll probably win this tomorrow. But Cove isn't the easiest place to get a result. Dundee Air 45-24-31. There is slight problems at Dundee. I'm not going to say that we're talking about sackings or anything like that imminent. But feedback I got this week isn't good. They've only won one of the last 4. That was against Hamilton. The only defence I can make is that 3 of those games, 3 of the last 4 have come on the road. Home form, they've won twice. They've beaten Arbroath and Queen's Park, but they've lost to Partick and Inverness. The one thing I will say is they've always scored minimum 2 goals at home this season. They're averaging 9 on 3, so you'd expect them to find the net a couple of times tomorrow minimum. And you've got to ask the question, are Ayr going to find the net that many times? Ayr's road form, wins at Queen's Park, Cove and Moreton, all by the odd goal, lost at Wraith. I think Dundee will probably win, but I don't think they should be the even money that's being put about. I think, that price is priced up on, they're the better side. They've got by far the best squad in this division, by far the best squad, and to find them in 5th, I think is pretty awful. I think were they to be 5th and further behind Partick, then there could be potential rumblings of sackings. I don't think we're in that way at the moment, but maybe it's not far off. Hamilton Partick 28-24-48. Partick 2 wins away from home. Dundee and Arbroath, they've lost at Queen's Park and Inverness by the odd goal. They do generally find the net a couple of times. Partick, they got done 1-0 last week at Inverness, who, to be fair to them, are rock solid at the back. So I wouldn't particularly sort of go in harsh on Partick. Hamilton have won once at home. They've beaten Arbroath 1-0. They've only scored 2 home goals all season. They've lost 3 times. I don't really fancy them. But it's one of those, isn't it, where you could maybe make a case for Hamilton, but I don't see it. I think Partick should win, but there's nothing in them. Morton Wraith, real Morton. They've won the last 2, but they're just as likely to lose this 3-0 or something. There's only it's always win 1, draw 1, lose 1 with these guys, but they have won the last 2. A win at Queen's Park and a 5-0 thrashing of Hamilton. They have won twice at home this season, but they've lost twice also to Ayr and Arbroath, but both times only by the odd goal. I would expect them to find the net tomorrow. Wraith on the road aren't the greatest. They've won at Hamilton. They've lost the other 3. I think it's right that the ton are favourites, but I wouldn't want to be taking this. Again, it's up to you how you see it. Right, League 1, Alloa Airdrie, 38-24-38. Real tough game to assess. No value at all here. There's 0.1 in Alloa, but 0.1 at 38% you're never going to take. They've won 3 from 5 at home. They've lost here to Edinburgh and a 3-0 defeat against Dunfermline last week. I felt that Dunfermline sort of showed their muscle last week, if you like. I wouldn't trust Alloa tomorrow, but I wouldn't trust Airdrie on current form. Airdrie seem to have fallen away. They got a thrashing, didn't they, a month or so ago, 6-0 at home to Edinburgh. They did bounce back with a 5-0 win over Clyde, but turned over at Kelty 1-0, 4-2 at Montrose, and a 3-3 draw at home to Queen of the South. They don't look to be in the best form. It's a tough game to bet on because Alloa are just so untrustworthy, I'm afraid to say. Dunfermline in Edinburgh, 60-24-16. Big game of the weekend. I think Dunfermline will be out to make a statement. I really do. They've drawn the last 3 at home to Airdrie, Falkirk and Peterhead, believe it or not. The other home wins have all been to 1-0, but they found the net 3 times against Dunfermline, against Alloa last week. I do expect them to play more open tomorrow because, Edinburgh will come for them. There's no doubt about that. They're just getting the ball down and going for sides, Edinburgh, and it's proving fruitful at the moment. The win at Montrose the other week was a real surprise for me. 6-0 at Airdrie. I think we could sort of put a bit of a line through that because Airdrie did go down to 10 men early, but there's no getting away from it. Edinburgh are in form, and I didn't expect them to be anywhere near. But I've been proved wrong. Humble pie, loads of it. Kelty Clyde 55-23-22. Been impressed recently with Kelty at home. The last 3 home games they've turned over Falkirk, Airdrie and Queen of the South. Prior to that they drew 0-0 with Dunfermline. They've not shipped in the last 4 games at home, and all of those 4 games have been against decent sides. They lost 2-0 at Edinburgh, first game of the season here. That's their only home defeat. I agree they should be way odds on for this game. Well, not way odds on, but 4-5. Clyde lost the last 6, lost the last 4 on the road. I just don't know what to say about Clyde. They're woefully out of form, and I think they'll get beat tomorrow. And there's a bit in it in Kelty, so it's up to you how you see it. Montrose Falkirk 43-23-34. Quite a tough game to assess. I'm on the side of Montrose. There's not enough in it at that price. 0.08 at 43 doesn't interest me. They've won 3 from 5 at home. They lost to Edinburgh, drew 0-0 with Queen of the South, but they've beaten Airdrie, Kelty and Clyde here. Falkirk were a team which I'm always opposing or looking to oppose. I don't think they're doing too much wrong this season. Turned over at Airdrie and Kelty have been their only defeats. Montrose away, that is probably harder than Kelty, and it's probably on a parallel with Airdrie. So, their 2 wins have been at Edinburgh and Peterhead. The Edinburgh one just doesn't stack up with any sort of form, does it? So, if I had to bet, I'd side with Montrose. Queen of the South, Peterhead, 60-23-17. Again, just look at Queen of the South's form. 1-2, drawn 4, lost 4. And this is classic 60%, which has been padded out by their shortfalls. This isn't all about Queen of the South, not at all. But their home form, bar that first game against Clyde, they've drawn with that Airdrie, Alloa, beat Edinburgh and lost to Dunfermline. I don't think that's overly bad form. It depends how you see it. Whereas Peterhead on the road, they've lost 3, drawn 2. They've drawn at Clyde and Dunfermline. Drawn at Dunfermline is incredible, isn't it? I don't understand that. Thump 5-0 at Alloa, beaten at Falkirk, beaten at Edinburgh. I'd expect Queen of the South to win. Would I trust Queen of the South at that price? Absolutely never. I'd want even money for that because I know how risky they are. Let's go on to League 2. Annan Stranraer 44-23-33. Big problems at Annan. Expectations aren't materialising at all. 1-2 draw 1, lost 1 at home. The home form's not been overly bad. The away form has been terrible. They've not won away from home, and we're in the middle of October. That big anti-post gamble that went on in the summer has gone astray already. Unless they're going to win every game between now and then, which they're not. They're priced to win tomorrow. They've beaten Forfar and Steny here, drawn with East Fife, lost to Stirling. Stranraer aren't a good side. They don't travel well. 4 road trips, lost 3, drawn 1. I wouldn't trust either of these teams tomorrow, to be honest. Stranraer have got the value. Annan have got the figure, but the figure, I wouldn't back it. I wouldn't back it in this game at all. I really wouldn't. Bonnyrigg East Fife 40-24-36. Bonnyrigg lost 4 in a row prior to turning Annan over last week, but I don't think that's great form, is it? After what I've just said about Annan, they have won 3 from their 5 games at home. To be fair to them, so they've won 60% of the home games. Fife seem to be better away from Bayview, don't they? They've only won once at home, lost 4, but their away form, they've won 3, drawn 2. They're unbeaten on the road, East Fife. It's a tough one to assess, isn't it? I'd be quite happy to back East Fife at that figure if that was more. I'd want 5-2 really to get involved. Excuse me, and we're not going to get anywhere near that. So, it's not a game to be playing in, but just interesting. East Fife haven't lost away from home. Dunbar and Albion, the wheels came right off, haven't they, at Dunbar? And we were with Stirling last week, actually. That was a members' bet, and I, as well as it being value, I did actually fancy it. But they've lost at Stranraer, lost at Stirling, drawn at Forfar in their last 3, but they've all been on the road. They're back at home tomorrow, and I'm sure they're going to be looking to make a statement against Albion. Albion are a team that will scrap for their lives. I thought they'd get turned over. I thought Elgin would put sort of at least 2 or 3 past them the other night, and they didn't. It was only 1-0. Their win on the road's been at Bonnyrigg. They've drawn at Stirling, which is odd, isn't it? And they've lost the other 3. Look, Dumbarton, I'm pretty certain will win, but again, you don't want to be taking 4-7, about 8-11 shots. You've got to be lucky if you're going to make money off stuff like that in the long run. Elgin Forfar, 45-23-32. They're in rude form, Elgin, aren't they? They've won 4 of the last 5. They've won their last 3 at home. They've beaten Albion and Bonnyrigg here. Drawn with Stranraer. Their only home defeat's been against East Fife. I think they're worthy favourites, and I do think they're worthy favourites, and I still struggle to understand how come Gary Irvine is in charge of Forfar. I can only assume that the board have given up caring. 8 points on the board. We're in the middle of October, bottom of the table, second best squad in this division. I just don't know what to say. But as I say, I think they're worth opposing with Annan Forfar, but don't be surprised if Forfar turned up here and won 3-0 or something, because they've got the squad to do that. There's no question about it. But 2 wins, 2 draws, Forfar have had, and they've lost 6 games. They've got 8 points on the board, middle of October, one of the favourites to go up, second best squad in the division. And that's something else, guys, that you always need to look at. If a team's underperforming and you think, well, that's got the 4th best squad or whatever in the league and they're 10th, you know where the fault is. The fault lies with the manager, head coach, whatever you want to call him. Absolutely no question. This is Gary Irvine's doing at Forfar. He needs to go. I don't like to see anybody lose their job, but Forfar, were they to get turned over tomorrow and Albion and Annan win, all of a sudden they're a few points adrift in 10th. It's unthinkable, absolutely unthinkable, that Forfar Athletic could be contesting a playoff for relegation at the end of the season. It's incredible. They need to act now. Sorry, stop going on about it. Stenhousemuir Stirling, 36-22-42. Steny at home. They've only won twice, haven't they? They've beaten Albion and Stranraer. Both teams that don't travel very well. 2 draws against Elgin and Annan, lost to Dumbarton. They do seem to be better on the road this season, Steny. They've not lost since August, since that home defeat to Dumbarton. So these, I'm not going to knock the form, but Stirling are absolutely smashing everybody. 6-0 against Dumbarton, 4-1 against Forfar, 4-1 against Stranraer, 3-0 against Stenhousemuir. They've won 4 out the last 5. Well, they've won the last 4. It's simple as that. They've won 6 of the last 8. They're flying along. 0.22 at 42%. It's how you see it, guys. Right, let's go on to League One. I've given you the Premiership stuff. There's nothing in the Championship this week at all. I didn't think it was I thought it was a very difficult coupon in the Championship. There was teams I felt that, I thought they'd win, they'll win, but not they'll win, but they were rated to win, is what I'm trying to say. But there was no value in the price, so I just didn't bother having any involvement. I thought it was safer to leave it. But we are ticking along okay now in the Championship. Accrington Derby. Half a point in Accrington at 34%. I think that's that's okay. I think that's okay, half a point at 34%. And, people are going to be all over Derby because they're a big side, new manager, etc. But, Accrington 1-2 at home, drawn 3, only lost once. And that defeat was against top of the table Ipswich, or, near as damn it, top of the table Ipswich. Derby have won once on the road. 2 draws, 2 defeats. I thought 6-5 was far too short, I have to say. Not saying they're going to win, get turned over or anything like that, but you don't want to be taking this, guys. This is far too easy to get sucked into these big sexy sides at short prices, away to the likes of these. It doesn't pay in the long run, I promise you that. Bolton Barnsley, 44-23-33. I think Bolton should win this. the home form has been rock solid, hasn't it? 5 from 6 at home for Bolton. They've lost the last 2. That was at Cheltenham and Forest Green, but they were away from home. They're a different side at home. I thought, it's just not enough in it, is there? And, there's half a point in Barnsley. They were turned over at home to Exeter last week. What an absolutely abysmal result. They've won 3 times on the road. They've won at Sheffield Wednesday, so that is something that you've got to think. Well, that's not bad. Their defeats have been at Derby and Plymouth, drawn at Ipswich as well. It's quite a tough game to assess. Values with Barnsley, the figures with Bolton. Neither result would surprise me. Burton Morecambe 50-24-26. Morecambe, I can believe it when I looked at the figures. Obviously I've put them in at 11-4, they're 4-1, and when I say to you about value, 26%, point and a quarter extra in it, that would be a bet I'd be quite happy to have, because I'm being well paid. And when I say I'm being well paid, I'm getting 4 points instead of 2.75. They should be 2.75 to 1, they're 4 to 1. I'm getting a point and a quarter extra, or 125% more for my money. For every pound I put on, I'm getting an extra £1.25. Morecambe's form on the road, isn't great. Let's be honest about it. They've won at Forest Green, they've drawn at Oxford and Bristol Rovers, lost at Peterborough, Bolton and Accrington. I don't think that is the worst road form. Burton, I've got a 50%. They've only won once at home as well. That was against Forest Green. They've lost 5 at home. Fleetwood, Portsmouth, Port Vale, Ipswich and Bristol Rovers. So, if you did want to get involved in Morecambe with a point and a quarter in it, they shouldn't be odds on Burton. It's a question of how you see it. Cambridge, Sheffield Wednesday. Cambridge fallen right off the radar recently, haven't they? Lost 5 of the last 6, and they've lost their last 2 home games to Barnsley and Derby. They were tickling along nicely, but they've beaten MK Dons, Exeter, Burton, Lincoln, teams that you don't expect to be near the top. Sheffield Wednesday, look, they ought to be cruising this tomorrow. I think they should be 8-13, they're 3-4, there's 0.13 in it. They've won 4 from 6 on the road. The defeats have been against Plymouth and Peterborough. Plymouth, top of the table, Peterborough, one of the best home sides. So, and those four wins have all been without shipping a goal. I think Sheffield Wednesday should win this. It looks a good bet, and there's a bit in it. Cheltenham, Bristol Rovers, 40-23-37. Cheltenham 3 from 6 at home, beating Bolton, Shrewsbury and Cambridge, and they're against Bristol Rovers. You never know what you're going to get with Rovers. They've been on a horrific run of form. They beat Cambridge, won at MK Dons the other night. We backed MK Dons the other night, actually, didn't we? I thought they'd win. They're rated to win, or there was value in it, or whatever. But it's how you see it. Exeter, Oxford, 45-24-31. Oxford, rancid form. 1 win on the road. That was at Cheltenham. They managed to draw against Charlton the other week. We backed Charlton the other night, actually, when they won. So. And I did say, didn't I? I thought Charlton were better than what they'd shown. It's a tough game to assess, isn't it? Exeter are up in 8th. They're not bad at home. The 2-0 defeat at home to Burton sort of tempers any enthusiasm to get involved. But they've beaten Port Vale, Wickham and MK Dons here. I think they're worthy favourites. There's a bit in them. It's how you see it, really. Fleetwood, Shrewsbury, 45-23-32. Tough game to assess, but I think the bet would have to be Fleetwood. 0.2 at 45. Probably not enough for involvement. They've only won once at home, but they've only lost once. That was to Barnsley. They've drawn the other 4 games. And those other 4 games, those draws, they've drawn against the likes of Derby and Charlton. So they ought to find it's easier tomorrow, Fleetwood, against Shrewsbury. But themselves, they're no mugs on the road, but their wins have been against Forest Green and Wickham, which aren't the best sides in the division by any chalk. Ipswich, Lincoln, 65-23-12. You don't need me to tell you who should win this. They've won 4 at home, Ipswich. 2 draws at home against Barnsley and Bolton. Lincoln aren't as good as those two, and Lincoln, I think, will get turned over here tomorrow. But 4-11 is a ridiculous price, isn't it? MK Dons Plymouth 30-23-47. The only thing you can say, MK Dons, they've won one, drawn one. Here, it's not the great home form, but the defeats have been against Sheffield Wednesday, Bolton and Peterborough, decent size. The Bristol Rovers is the only sort of underperformance, if you like. Plymouth, I made them 11-10. They're 6-5. Their away defeats are at Fleetwood and Charlton. They've won at Wickham, Derby and Forest Green, drawn at Portsmouth. They should be up to getting this done tomorrow, Plymouth. They're not top of the table for no reason. It's how you see it. Port Vale Forest Green 58-23-19. Odds on, I think they should be Port Vale. I know they've lost twice at home, but those home defeats have come against Sheffield Wednesday and Portsmouth, 2 of the top 3 in the league. Well, they will be 2 of the top 3 in the league at the end of the season. I'm sure they will. They've beaten Fleetwood and Shrewsbury here, drawn with Bolton. I think that's decent form. I really do. I think that's decent form. They're 16th in the league, Port Vale, but I think they're up to turning over a Forest Green side that have won only once on the road, and that was on the first day of the season. They had a 4-1 beating off Peterborough in the week. Prior to that, they lost at Burton, drawn at Charlton. I think Port Vale should be a tad shorter than the 5-6 they are. Wickham Peterborough 37-24-39. Difficult one, this, because I think, again, this is one of those where I feel that this price has been jacked up by Peterborough's shortcomings away from home. Wickham have lost twice at home to Shrewsbury and Plymouth, but they've beaten Accrington, Burton, drawn with Charlton. I think that's okay-ish form. That's sort of what I'd sort of say middle of the road form. Peterborough, they've lost 4 on the road, but I can cut them some slack because those defeats were at Plymouth, Derby, Portsmouth and Bolton, 4 of the sort of toppish sides in the league, if you like. They've won at MK Dons and Cheltenham. They're rated to win this, but I just felt they were too skinny. Charlton Portsmouth 35-23-42. We were with Charlton the other night when they beat Exeter. They've not lost at home, and I know it's tempting to go in with Portsmouth and think, well, we're getting 7-4, about 11-8. That's just one note of caution. And they beat Derby here, Charlton, and they beat Plymouth 5-1. They are capable. And, you know, they've got draws here against Cambridge, Forest Green and Oxford, which is really frustrating. But, you know, if Charlton mean business, they're capable of seeing off Portsmouth. But Portsmouth themselves have only lost once. That was away at Ipswich. But the last 3 games, it's been 2 draws and a defeat. But the draws were against Plymouth and Fleetwood. And Fleetwood, as we know, are experts at putting up a draw. Right, let's go on to League 2. Tranmere Crew, that's tonight, 55-23-22. Tranmere evens, I think they should be odds on. They've lost twice here against Stevenage and Bradford, but their team's in the top 6. They've won all the other games. They've beaten Barrow, Gillingham and Colchester here without conceding a goal. I think they should be a shade of odds on for this. Crew, they've won only once on the road. That was away at second bottom Rochdale. They are capable of fighting for a draw, Crew, but I just think that Tranmere should be odds on for this. Harrogate Hartlepool 40-23-37. Tough game to assess, but Harrogate beat Swindon here, but they've lost the other 3 and drawn 0-0 at home to bottom of the table. Crawley, Hartlepool are getting their act together, but they're drawing too many for me. I do think if I had to have a bet in this game tomorrow, I would back Hartlepool. Not just saying that through rose-tinted specs either. But tough one to assess. Probably best off leaving it. Mansfield Walsall 60-23-17. 4-6. Mansfield, that isn't 0.1. I don't know why I've done that. That 4-6. That's, we'll say 4. It is 3 something, but So yeah, there's this 0.04 in Mansfield at 60%. They've won 3 from 5 at home. Beaten Tranmere, Stockport, Wimbledon, Walsall. I mean, they're the only team they've beaten on road. Newport are 18th. They've lost 3 out from 3 against teams towards the top. I'd expect that to continue. Wimbledon against Sutton, 46-24-30. Yeah, Wimbledon sits 17th. They've beaten every team below them bar Hartlepool, who they drew with. But they have had home draw with Doncaster and only went down 1-0 to Barrow and 2-0 at Northampton. So they're capable of winning at home, Wimbledon. Sutton on the road have lost every game bar 1, and that was a 0-0 draw against Grimsby. And if you don't know, Grimsby have won only 1 game at home all season. That was against bottom of the table Crawley. They're an away side, Grimsby are. Carlisle against Doncaster, 7th plays 8, 44-23-33. There's a point in Doncaster on figures, but just to bear in mind, and it's tough, isn't it? Because I know that looks good, that point, and the reason being is because they've turned over Salford, Northampton, who are 3rd and 4th. They've drawn against Bradford, Orient. They've had some really great results against the top sides. They've had some really great results against the bottom sides, but it's teams like they were turned over against Mansfield, Barrow, Swindon. Hartlepool beat them as well, so that sort of tempers any enthusiasm, if you like. Carlisle have lost only 1 game all season. That was away at top of the table Stevenage, 2-1. I don't think they should be odds on though, Carlisle. I think the bookmakers are doing Doncaster, disrespecting them slightly. Crawley Newport, 32-24-44. You couldn't back Crawley. They're bottom of the table. They've beaten only Stockport at home all season. I mean, that's their only win. I think they are the worst team in the division. I was worried it was going to be Hartlepool at the start of the season, but I always did think they'd have enough to get away from it, and they're starting to pull away. Newport, they've won away at Orient, haven't they, in Harrogate. They lost to Swindon, Bradford and Stevenage on the road, which probably is good form. I think they warrant being favourites for this, and I do think they'll probably win. Gillingham, Stevenage are just absolutely firing, aren't they? Won every home game, won 3 from 6, drawn 1. The only 2 defeats on the road have been at Salford and Bradford. When I look at it, I think, are they in a false position? And they're not. I mean, there's 0.1 in it at 53%. It's not the best, is it? But it's as good as you're going to get. To be fair to Gillingham, they have only lost twice at home against Harrogate and Mansfield. So they've beaten Sutton, Rochdale here, drawn with Walsall and Swindon. So they're no mugs, Gillingham. But Stevenage do look good, don't they? Orient, Northampton, 55-23-22. Orient, decent at home, won 5 from 6, lost at home to Newport. That was their only defeat. I can't believe the figure on Northampton is low, but it is. They've not beaten a side outside the top 8. They've not beaten a side inside the top 8. All the wins have come against teams 8th or below, 9th or below, I should say. If they play their best, they're capable, Northampton, but Orient, it's not a game that I've got any intention of playing in. Rochdale Barrow, 38-24-38. I've got this game sort of, well, it's even, isn't it, between those two. Rochdale yet to win at home, but there is signs. They're just starting to turn a corner. And Barrow on the road, it's a difficult one, isn't it? I just think that Barrow, I really do love Pete Wild as the manager. I think he's a top manager. But I just think they're starting to find their level now, Barrow. Sadly, it's not a game for me to get involved in. Salford Bradford, 44-23-33. I think both of these are slightly unpredictable. Yes, I agree. Salford should be favourites with a figure of 44, and Bradford's only 33. Make no mistake, Bradford are capable, but you'd want paying more than that for that figure to find out. I would anyway. Stockport Grimsby, 42-23-35. I can't believe they're odds on. Absolutely no way should Stockport be odds on for this. They've won twice at home. They've beaten 17th place Wimbledon, 20th place Colchester. I know they won at Bradford last week. But you win 2 games from 6 at home, you against the 17th and 20th place team. You do not warrant being odds on against a team that's placed 11th. And let me just tell you about that team that's placed 11th in Grimsby. They've played 4 games on the road against teams below them in the league. They've won all of them, and 3 of them to nil. Stockport fit into that category. It's a massive price on Grimsby. You have to back it. You can't let a team with that amount of value in, with that figure, go unbacked. So I'm not saying they're going to win, because there's a 65% chance they won't win. So just do bear that in mind. There's 65% chance this isn't going to win, but this is what it's all about. Swindon against Colchester, 60-23-17. Swindon won 3 from 6 at home. Colchester, they're down the bottom, aren't they? They've lost 4 from 5 away from home. Swindon should be odds on. They're not. Right, National League. There's only 3 games here of interest, because obviously it's the Cup this weekend. I mean, I'm not going to a game in the National League. I'm going to Swindon tomorrow. So let's get on with this. Darlington against Brackley. They've won 5 from 6 at home. Darlington. Their only defeat was at home to 3rd place Banbury. They sit 2nd in the table at the moment, Darlington. Rated 46%. Brackley 30%. Brackley on the road, they have won 2, drawn 1, lost 3. I think Darlington should win, and I think they should be a tad shorter than 6-4 they are. 2 bets in the south for us then. Dartford Tonbridge 55-23-22. I think Dartford should be 4-5. They're evens. They've won 4 from 6 at home, Dartford, and they play a Tonbridge side who have won 3 on the road, but all of those 3 victories have come against teams 16th or below. I think Dartford should win. Hemel Hempstead Cheshunt 57-22-21. Hemel should be 8-11. I think they've only won twice this season at home, but they've lost to Welling and Dartford, who are 4th and 6th. They held Worthing. They've beaten Tonbridge and Farnborough. Cheshunt are 2nd bottom. They've played 5 on the road, lost them all. There's 0.19 in it. Those are the 3 bets in the National League, and that is it, guys. I hope you're a bit clued up a bit more on those prices. That's how you do it, how we said at the start of the video. If you've got any questions, drop me an email, and if I get the same question all the time, I'll stick it in the video. As I say, I'm going to the Swindon game tomorrow, and they're rated 60% against Colchester, which is just over an hour for me. Hopefully it'll be a fruitful journey. If you go into any games, good luck, stay safe, and fingers crossed we can have a good weekend. That's it. Back next time.